All right. So this gives us a general picture of the subject of our consideration and gives us the elementary facts upon which all our thoughts must be based. It becomes apparent, therefore, as we study the above, that the aspirant has three things to do. Okay. First, he has to learn the nature of the energies or pranas which have brought his magical creation, the physical body, into manifestation, and which keep it in such a condition that he can or cannot rapidly achieve the spiritual objectives of his soul. So we're learning the energies, we're learning the pranas. And therefore, this lesson involves, he says, A, arriving at a knowledge of those forces which are peculiarly potent in his life and which seem to direct his activities. Now, all of us function through different chakras and different combinations of chakras. We have different rays. We have different astrological potencies. We have a particular energy configuration. We have to know what that is. This will bring to him the knowledge as to which centers of his etheric body are awakened and which are dormant. This all aspirants have to grasp before they really can apply themselves to the real training for discipleship. Now, I'm only remembering one instance in which DK specified for a disciple the percentage of stimulation or awakenedness which his chakras had. It was something like your head center is 40% awakened. I'm, off the top of my head. Your ajna is 15% awakened. Your throat is, I forget what he said. I remember his solar plexus was something like 75% awakened. And I think he only went down to his solar plexus. There was something like 60%, 40%, 15%, 75%. All right, I'll find it. It was the very first disciple in the Dina books, and it was in Dina 1, and I think it was disciple BCD. He was an Englishman. And DK says, "Let me analyze this for you," and he did. I tell you what, I'm going to get rid of that, and I'll try again. Okay, I'll try again. No, I'm really going to get rid of it, and I'll try again. Sometimes if you press the wrong button, you're in trouble. Okay, so now this was, the man's name was Herbert Adams. He was an Englishman. He had a third-ray soul, a sixth-ray personality, a fifth-ray mind, a sixth-ray astral body, and a third-ray physical. 3, 6, 5, 6, 3. You would expect he would have a lot of third and sixth ray, right? Now, if he has a lot of third and sixth ray, what chakras would you expect would be activated? Third and sixth ray. Throat and third and sixth ray. Solar plexus. So let's just see. What happened. Okay, I wanted to look at percentage. Okay, so BCD, maybe, okay. Let's see here. Let me try this. 75%. Maybe it'll get there. No, all they're giving me is the, it's not showing, it's not registering. Of course, I'm in the wrong book. Oh, goodness. All right. Now I'll try again. Try again. Yes. Okay, here it is. Your head center is 40% awakened. Your ajna center is 15% awakened. He wanted to train his ajna center. Your throat center is 60% awakened. Your heart center is 50%. Your solar plexus is 75%. And sure enough, and this is the lesson involved here, according to his rays, predominantly 2 third rays and 2 sixth rays are the chakras awakened. So, think about your rays. The page is 112 in Dyna 1, Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 1. Think about your rays. If you have a strong sixth ray, if you have a strong third ray, maybe you have a strong fourth ray. And maybe, according to the fourth ray, see, the fourth ray is not usually assigned to a chakra under the normal planetary assignments. But the ajna center is ruled at a certain point in discipleship by the fourth ray. So you oftentimes maybe see fourth ray people with what I call a corrugated forehead. They have the worried look, you know, and there's a lot of activity right around here when the fourth ray is active. I think the ajna center is active, and they're all, you know, they are oftentimes very visual, and they're trying to see the arrangement of things. The fourth ray could bring in quite a bit here, but so could the fifth ray. So if you are a second ray personality or a highly advanced second ray soul, then the heart center would be among the more open centers. Now maybe the seventh ray people will have a strong sacral center. He does talk about that. Maybe first ray people will have a strong development of the base of the spine. However, the base of the spine to become fully developed must wait until the later stages of evolution, being fully developed at the 5th degree. So this percentage thing is not just a straightforward business. It has to do with which centers tend to unfold at what time of human evolution. It's not just which rays you have, it's also the usual program of unfoldment that is also involved. So we have to see which forces are active in our life. Now, a lot of us have studied astrology, rayology, chakrology, if you will. We have a certain sense about what's active and what needs to be more active. You see a lot of people in the seventh ray Scandinavian countries who need more activation of their throat center. You see different groups of people. You know, there's certain very third ray groups, they don't need their throat center at all. That's already overdeveloped. They need their heart center, let's say. If you go to Italy, let's say, with its strong sixth ray and fourth ray, and with Sagittarius strong, you see a lot of solar plexus, let's say. And it shows in the animation of how people speak with their hands, and, you know, whereas there's a much more stoic kind of approach in the north. You see some groups of people perhaps where the head center is not much developed at all, and others who are very, very purposeful. So there is the country and the people among whom you live, and the tendency of the group in which you find yourself, but there's also the individual equation. Now, how many here feel you could use more head center activity? Like everybody, maybe? The head center is always the one. How many feel that expression through the throat center is something that could be enhanced or more developed? Anybody feel that way? What about the heart center? Does everybody feel that you could be expressing more or better through the heart center? I guess that's kind of hierarchy, isn't it? Yeah. Hierarchy, if you are connected with the solar fire, you will express more through the heart center. But then, is there anybody here that feels that your solar plexus could be more subdued, or is it in a properly subdued condition? Well, we have to think about these things, right? Well, I won't go further with this. I will just say that we need to assess the relative balance of the energies that are coming through us. Probably none of us at this point is deliberately seeking to cultivate the activation of the sacral center. That's an old center. And it does, yes, we have some hands coming up here. Okay, yes, yes. I think we're still ruled by our horoscopes. Partially. Yes, partially ruled, and also by our rays, which may not be exactly the same thing. We're also ruled by the stage of evolution in which we find ourselves. A number of things contribute to how the centers are activated. But basically what DK is saying here is know the forces, know the energies which are coming into your system. There's many ways to assess it because none of us is perfectly in balance. We're just not yet. The Christ has the perfectly balanced endocrine system. Isn't that what we're told in esoteric healing? He has the perfected endocrine system. So that also means that he has the perfected chakric system, all in perfect balance. That's why I think the sign Libra is so terribly important in his particular horoscope. But let every one of us assess the different forces that are coming into our system and see where more is needed. Now, I'll give you an example. In my own case, I don't need more throat center stimulation. See, in other words, my throat center is already running away with the show. But I would say, okay, that's out of balance compared to the heart center. So I need more heart center stimulation. I'm an Aries type, so my head is very stimulated. My throat is very stimulated. But what about the heart center? See, if I was trying to throw energy and attention into creating a balance in my own nature, I would work on the heart center rather than on the throat and the head. And that would probably bring those two into balance as well. So everybody has their own peculiar situation. And in general, we want a transference from the lower 3 chakras to the higher ones. So none of us is deliberately working at this time, nor should we be, at augmenting the power of the solar plexus and the sacral center. We don't need to do that. Yes. Oh, so you would like to make that... Okay, well, maybe you find that for me. Wait a second. Wait a second. Oh, okay. 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 The upper part of the solar plexus. Okay. Okay. How okay, so basically what Lorna is saying here, the solar plexus is very needed. It puts us in rapport with the needs of humanity. And look, in terms of the psychologists, the solar plexus is used. But if you were faced with this particular configuration of centers, would you at this time throw energy into the solar plexus to create the balance? No, you wouldn't. So maybe all things in good time, you know? The last few openings of a particular center, which are the more spiritual side, I think that can best be approached. Let's say this man is really deficient in his ajna awakening. He was the only one that DK wanted to train as a psychic. He says, I'm giving you psychic training. This will help you open up your ajna center. And obviously, it was not going to be the kind of psychic training that involved the solar plexus per se. It was going to be the higher form of psychism involving the ajna center. So look, I know what you're saying. It's the same for the throat center. There are some higher cities connected with the throat center, probably with all the centers, and they come at the end. I think before we get to that point where we want to throw a lot of energy into a particular center, we want a reasonable balance in our energy system so we don't further unbalance it. I understand what you're saying. And the solar plexus does allow us to come on rapport, especially as we begin to get heart center energy involved in the loop, as we begin to lift. In other words, look at the function of Neptune. Does Neptune belong to the solar plexus? Does Neptune belong to the heart? Or does Neptune belong to both? See, he only gives us the solar plexus, but it's quite obvious that Neptune, with its second ray monad, is extremely important in ruling the upper part of the solar plexus, the upper point in the solar plexus, as it begins to transfer into the heart center. So Neptune is like a bridge that helps us elevate solar plexus energy into the heart center energy, and Neptune is the planet of feeling, compassion, rapport, sympathy. See, you're talking about the virtues of the solar plexus to put us on rapport with our fellow human being. I'm saying that is a Neptunian function. It's not a Martian function at all. Mars rules the solar plexus, and you say, okay, I'm going to come in rapport with you via Mars through my solar plexus. It's not going to happen. Yes, Mars rules the lower point in the solar plexus and is usually a point of division and friction between people. And Neptune says, I feel what you're going through. You and I are a lot more alike than I thought when we were in conflict, so I can begin to relate to you. And that's how the solar plexus is used in relation to compassion and lifts the energy up into the heart. So you get a heart solar plexus Neptune loop, which is very needed to keep us on rapport with others. And I would say this, I'll just make a speculation, that when the higher functions of the solar plexus are unfolding, it's going to be along the line of Neptune rather than along the line of Mars. That Neptune will be the planet which unfolds those later potentials within it. And you could probably go into every one of the chakras and look at the planet that is responsible for the unfolding of the final siddhis within that chakra. Like, for instance, when we're dealing with the throat center, it could be Saturn, but in a disciple, the seventh ray begins to rule the throat center. And why should it maybe not be Uranus and Mercury involved there that give the final attainments? All right. Now I think we've gone a little beyond the time we usually go. So we will take a little break, not too long, because before you know it, we'll be right into lunch. And then we'll continue here. This is going to be very important stuff. It's all about our energy system. So take a 14-minute break, and we will see you soon. Okay. Okay, hi everybody. So far I haven't seen any more that signal that said we've had lost audio. I hope that that is the case. So welcome Andrew, Annette, Bio, Carol, Elena from Greece, Gary. We also have Elena from Slovakia, so she's not here today. Jeff, okay, you're not online. Glenda, yes. Hi. Heather, Jenny, Johanna, Leah, Mar, you're on twice. I don't know how you managed that. Marianne, Mark, Nicholas, and Sirius, Meta, Susila, Tuya, Walter, and William. We will have probably one more hour of discussion this morning from 11:30 our time until 12:30 our time, and that begins in 15 minutes or so. Is there anything that anybody wanted to say or needed to say at this time? If so, you can. I would just have a couple of minutes here, and then I have to take just a little break. I'd look for your hand going up if there was something that somebody, yes, okay, here's Heather. Heather, hello? Are you there? Am I hearing? Okay, I have you unmuted, Heather. Your hand seems to be up, but I don't hear. So I'll tell you what, just a general, Rick Good gave us some tips the other day about raising hands and so forth. You have a slightly different dashboard than I do, so there is a little symbol you can press to raise your hand. I also would suggest check out the sound system on your computer and make sure it's on. Make sure that your computer is not on mute, and make sure that your computer has an adequate level of volume Otherwise, you'll be speaking into your headset, but nothing will register. So do check that out. Some people saying, well, I guess I have a very soft headset, they said yesterday. And I don't think it's so much that. Okay, Heather, I see your hand going in, up and down there. It's not so much that they have a soft headset, is that the computer volume adjustments are not correct. Okay, here's Mar. Mar, are you there? Hello, Mar.
I'm here. Can you hear me? Yeah.
I hear you very well. Yes.
Okay. So the issue of the intuition being of a lower and a higher quality, that was very important in, I believe, in the meditation earlier today. I've said this before. We have not talked enough in our classes about the Buddhic plane and this. What DK says, or from what I can remember, what DK said about the Buddhic plane, most of us think that we have these intuitive thoughts when really it's only just basic common sense that comes from the permanent atom.
Yeah, or the psychic, or the psychic hunch, as he sometimes calls it. And remember, there is a connection there between your emotions and the intuition. There is a astral Buddhic link, definitely, but it's not the real thing unless we have the sense of the whole. His definition of intuition is given in the beginning of the Glamour book, and he dignifies it beautifully. He says it's about divine love and wholeness. It's not about a kind of psychic knowledge. Yeah. I'll read that sometime. I'll bring it to us. Yeah. So did you want to make a further point on that, Mar?
Well, no, that's the issue. I'd like to just discuss it more, hopefully before your lunch, if you can discuss it.
Okay. We'll see what I can do. Maybe I can pull out this question of intuition and what it really is.
Or another time. Yeah, very good. I'm enjoying this very much.
Okay, thanks, Mar. I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll leave up, I'll go on a little hunt here, just a quick little hunt, into a Glamour World problem. And it's right on, it's almost right on page 4 or something. It's right there in the beginning.
Right.
Illumination. Intuition has various parts to itself, but take a look here, Mar, and everybody. Intuition is the synthetic understanding, which is the prerogative of the soul, and it only becomes possible when the soul, on its own plane, own level, is reaching in two directions, towards the monad and towards the integrated at one personality. Intuition, now here it is. This is the point. Which, in other words, you can have psychic knowledge of something, and it is not what DK calls intuition. And your psychic knowledge may even be correct. And he also says that most people with a fair knowledge of humanity can sum up with some facility the nature of a fellow human being. That's just based on experience. And so people say, well, that's your intuition. It's not what he calls intuition. Intuition. This is fantastic. Always love this. Intuition is a comprehensive grip of the principle of universality. And when it is functioning, there is momentarily at least a complete loss of the sense of separateness. At its highest point, it is known as that universal love. This is intuition. This is the great Buddhic principle, which has no relation to sentiment, i.e. to liking or disliking, or to the affectional reaction, but is predominantly in the nature of an identification with all beings. Here, let me just bold that out here. Identification with all beings. This then is true compassion known. Then does criticism become impossible. Then only is the divine germ seen as latent in all forms. That is one of the best paragraphs defining what he really means by intuition. So that is in Glamour World Problem, right at the beginning of the book, page 3. And this is the true intuition of the 4th level of the Buddhic plane, where divine love, understanding, harmony, and identification are operating. Perhaps not in the fullest measure, but they are operating in a way that is far above the way they do usually for us. Does that help? That's, I think,
it does.
Really
Thank you so much.
Really important one. Okay, Mar, and I'll tell you what, folks, I'm just going to take the slightest little break here and be back in 10 minutes. Look forward to continuing with you. Okay. Be back very soon. Not the full meaning of intuition. It gives you a type of knowledge, but not the full meaning. This is page 3 in Glamour, a World Problem. I've often pulled this definition out, and we have discussed it. A comprehensive grip of the principle of universality. And the result is that there's a complete loss of separateness, the sense of separateness. It's universal love. It's an identification with all beings. You know, there's a statement that if you wish to know, you have to love, so that love reveals. That if we want to know people, we have to love them. If we want to know anything, we have to love. And I think it's been said that sort of a Venusian statement that interest is another name for love. I think Thomas Mann said that. So, you know, if we're coldly objective about things, then we will understand the surface of things. But if we really want to understand the heart of any matter, we have to identify with it. We have to fuse with it. The subject and the object can no longer be separate. We have to enter into contemplation of it. And a contemplative attitude in the pursuit of knowledge of something is like a loving attitude. It involves the planet Venus more than the lower aspect of Mercury. So if you want to know another person and you really dislike that other person, you're not going to have a real knowledge of that person. That would be sentiment, liking and disliking, and sentiment is a very poor indicator of deep knowledge. It's just superficial. Even liking can be incomplete because then you only focus on certain aspects of the individual and not on others. But love is a deeper understanding. Love, understanding, and identification, they all go with the energy of Pisces. And the Piscean person, I think, can achieve them far better than most. And so let's just put it like this, that once you reach in your consciousness the Buddhic plane, you can begin to say, as it is said in all of the stanzas relating to the angel of the presence, the whole is with us now. Wholeness is always a factor, not just my soul, thy soul, but the whole soul, the whole earth. Wholeness is a factor which begins at the Buddhic plane. And it doesn't only begin as a mental understanding, but as an experienced identification, a sense, an experience, a sense of participation. Experience and participation in wholeness begins at the Buddhic plane. And unless we feel, because I want to use feel in the heart sense, that we are participating in wholeness, we are not going to have a grasp of the intuition as DK is defining it here. So the sixth principle, the buddhi, the sense of loving understanding within a sense of wholeness, this is the intuition in a high sense. Psychic knowledge is another matter. Psychic knowledge can be extremely divorced from the sense of wholeness. It is good to have, good to cultivate, and all true intuitives who are masters have the psychic knowledge as well. Sometimes we have to turn off one of our abilities in order to cultivate another, as in the extreme example when some people who have to learn music are born blind, and some people who have to learn to live through the eye are born unable to hear. That would be like sensory deprivation in order to cultivate another sense. Sometimes it happens that way. Now, the interesting thing is that we might have to turn off our psychism in order to become intuitive. And so many people mistake psychism for intuition, and yet it can really get in the way. Yes, Eric. Rudolf Steiner's example, as a young man, he had very strong psychic abilities, but they were disturbing him. He set out a strong wish to get rid of his psychic abilities, and they disappeared. And much later they came back on a higher turn of the spiral. Yes. Well, very interesting. Well, he was a Pisces too, but he was a Scorpio ascending. So the early tendencies were Pisces, and later he says, I have to conquer this. That's Scorpio. And then you have, excuse me, we're always told we will never lose anything, and that everything of value will be restored to us on a higher turn of the spiral. Sometimes we also have to break relationships with certain people that are based on personality relationships, and then they are restored to you later as a soul. So we as human beings, we just can't do everything at the same time, not in the beginning. As human beings, we are under Saturn. We sometimes have to work on one thing at a time. But then come those periods of synthesis where the lines cross. And then all the things you worked on in a linear fashion are restored to you so that you can simultaneously experience them. I would say the third initiation is such a time where the entire content of your causal body is given to you simultaneously, even though it was a piece-by-piece collection over many, many years. You are now become a rich young man, and you can experience all that you have accumulated. I would say that it goes like this. Every time the lines cross, they cross at initiation 1, and then at 3, and then at 5, and then at 7, they cross. And those odd numbers are moments of synthesis, whereas the even numbers are moments of division and decision where you can't have it all, so to speak. You are apparently deprived of something, and you have to separate yourself from something. At the odd numbers, things are restored to you. They are moments of synthesis. Excuse me. All right, let's move on. I think this is good because after 5 days I won't have a voice anymore, and this is the 5th day. All will work well. No, maybe it's just the tea. Never put milk in tea. It will take away your voice. All right. So we arrive at the knowledge of the forces which are peculiarly potent in our lives, and I think all of us studying astrology and rheology, we certainly have an idea of what those forces are. And then we can adjust them and bring them into balance. DK says, the reason to study a horoscope is to get in there and subdue some things and strengthen others. You don't just accept your horoscope. He says you learn about it, and then you play upon it by making some things go down and some things go up in order to create a real balance. The next thing we have to do will be grasping the relation between these forces of nature which he has appropriated for his own use and which constitute the sum total of his personal, mental, sentient, and vital energies, and those same forces as they are found in the natural world and govern the manifestation of the macrocosm. So do we understand what he's saying there? Two types of forces, within and without. Learn to relate them. In other words, we are within a larger context which also has a personal, mental, sentient, and vital component. We have to relate our own to that. And I think the magician is doing that all the time. In other words, the magician has his own astral body, but then he's surrounded by the Agni Suryans in the local astral plane. He has to create a relationship. The same with the Agni Shvatas, the same with the Agni Chaitans. You have what's within yourself and what it relates to that is similar outside yourself. And we have to break down the barrier between them so we can work upon what is outside ourselves by using what is inside ourselves. Okay, now let's see. Let's just check and see what we're looking at here. So he's learning the nature of the energies which have brought his physical body into incarnation, and so he's trying to achieve certain objectives by learning the nature of energies. what's within himself and the environment. And the next thing is learning to work with these energies in an intelligent manner in order to bring about three happenings. So let's see what these happenings are. Um, one, an harmonious cooperation with his own solar angel so that solar force may impose its rhythm upon lunar forces. Well, Rule 5 for applicants. Let the disciple see to it that the solar angel dims the light of the lunar angels, remaining the sole luminary, the only luminary in the microcosmic sky. So we are the aspirant. We have to see to it. We have a solar angel. He has to put out the light of the lunar angels, and only our solar angel is in the sky of our consciousness. That's what we have to do. So if we work with energies properly, that's what he's saying we do. We cooperate with the solar angel so that the solar angel can impose its rhythm upon the lunar forces. Now, in your own life, when the solar angel has succeeded in imposing its rhythm on your lunar forces, how does your etheric body behave? How do your emotions behave? How does your mind behave when the solar angel has imposed its rhythm upon those lunar fields? What do you think? What is the experience? More vitality in the etheric body, especially. More balance. Is there more emotion or less emotion? I think so. I think there's less emotionalism. There is this calmness. In other words, the typical transfer from the sixth ray astral body to the second ray astral body, which is considered desirable. We begin to have, that Christ-like quality, calmness forever unperturbed, which does not mean that we're not sensitive. What about the mind? When the solar angel imposes its rhythm upon the lunar forces, does the mind become what? Clearer, and more perceptive, and less chaotic, and less jumping all over the place, more in control. It can be stilled for impression. So the solar angel, solar fire, has a very interesting effect. Now, one thing we all ought to be able to do is have a feeling for the difference between the experience of fire by friction and solar fire. And probably we all have it, don't we? I mean, my wife and I, Tuya, we were in Tallinn, Estonia, when the Dalai Lama was visiting, and he first came to a church where a number of people had gathered, and you could kind of feel him approaching. It was very interesting because his aura was extending before him in a way. When he came in, you did not feel fire by friction. You really felt what solar fire was all about. It was a radiant atmosphere. It was calm. It was beautiful. It was stimulating of love. It was joyful. These solar fire type of energies came through that particular presence. So do we have a sensitivity for that? I think we do, don't we, by now? I mean, we've been in this business so long that if we can't discriminate between the feeling of fire by friction and the feeling of solar fire, then we haven't been paying attention. If you see arguments going on between people, if you see irritation, strong, insulting, critical words, and all the rest of it, that's not solar fire. Solar fire has a completely different quality. Of course, if you really assess things, you see how little solar fire is actually in expression in human relationships, and how much more we need. Okay, so we're learning to work with these energies in an intelligent manner. And imposition is not a bad thing. It's a first ray thing, of course. And the solar angel, although largely a second ray, fifth ray being, when it comes to the human being, the solar angel is, in a way, in charge. So the solar angel is occupying a first ray directorial supervisory function. The solar angel is the king of the system for quite a while. Okay, the next thing would be an intelligent response to and affiliation with the group of world servers who at any given time have undertaken the work of directing, by the power of their thought, the forces of nature, and so leading the whole creative body forward along the lines of divine intent. So we're learning how to work with these energies, and when that happens, our soul imposes itself upon the lunar nature, and we can connect with the new group of world servers and thereby direct the power of thought in humanity to more towards divine purpose. So as we're going along and we're mastering our energies, do we feel more connected with the world servers? Do we? Do we feel there's a community of us all over the world, not necessarily esotericists, but men and women of goodwill who are effective? Do we feel a common heart and soul bond with such people, even though we may not even know who they are, but we have a sense of their presence? Is that happening? So in general, I would say, yes, it is happening, yes. And sometimes more so than others. The other day, one of our colleagues in California sent us a video. Oh, it's one of those bringing art into life videos. This opera company infiltrated a train station in, was it London or was it in the United States? I don't remember. And all of a sudden, just like ordinary people, and all of a sudden, bang, the performance began. And from the midst of all these people, where was it? Was it London? And what were they singing? Do you remember? Was it? It was beautiful, beautiful. No, it was the Hallelujah Chorus. It was the Hallelujah Chorus from Handel, the Messiah. There you just had had the feeling through this beautiful music, which is so uplifting, of this union of souls. You just felt that everybody at that moment, even though what's going on, they were lifted up into their soul. They were lifted up into that feeling of common bond and heart with all humanity, and it was coming from within them because the opera singers had surrounded them. And you couldn't tell an opera singer from a normal person until they opened their mouth and they, and people were so happy about that somehow. It was one of those art in life moments. Yeah. Yeah. So you saw it too. We all saw it. It was marvelous. Yes. 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 It's somewhere on the Facebook because I sent it around to everybody. So I'm happy to send it to you too. Absolutely. Or was that on the Danish television too? There have been. There have been. Yeah. Some of the most beautiful music, even a little opera performance was done too. And I saw this where the characters were all modern people who were commuters and all the rest of it. Only they put it in terms of Puccini's opera Turandot. And they ended up with this Nessun Dorma, da 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 dum da dum. That has that marvelous, so inspiring. Anyway, inspiration lifts us all into the sense of the one soul. I said, well, as I looked out at everybody, I said, well, where are the individuals? This is one soul, and so that sense of the new group of world servers is like that. We're all in this together, and we're all enjoying the fact that we are one soul, and there's lots of beauty and love and unity and harmony. It was a great thing, great thing. So I'm very grateful to the lady Sheldon and Helena. They passed this on to me, and I just sent it to everybody. I guess went around and around to everybody. It was the airport, was it? Was the airport? Airport. Wait, wait, wait. They were being welcomed as they came in. It was the airport. Yes, it's a YouTube thing. YouTube. Yep, yep. We can find it. We can find it. We can even play it. We can even play it here right now. We can play it. Um, violinist, American Chinese violinist at a concert. Okay, but whoever it was, South Yachting. Brahms violin concerto. Suddenly, he touched the soul level, and the people weren't aware of what happened. And suddenly they were transformed, shining. Yeah, well, that's it. You can see how the fourth ray could come in. You could see what it could do to unify humanity. You could see the three. Yeah. Uh, well, I've told you about this before, but I used to go to a place called the National Music Camp, and I went there for many, many years. And we had this auditorium, and above the auditorium, in those old days, it was 60 years ago, whatever, it said, dedicated to the promotion of world friendship through the universal language of the arts. This was the key. The universal language of the arts. I realize now that this organization, which began in 1928 and is still going strong, had a fourth ray soul and a seventh ray personality. We all wore uniforms. We all had, seventh ray. We all had different types of shirts to identify what group we were in, and different buttons and all the rest of it. But the whole thing was based on the soul of art and beauty. And people came from all over the world and shared their art, and there was this great feeling of unity. So remember, the new group of world servers is ruled by the fourth ray, and it's ruled by the artistic sign Taurus, which is as its ruler Venus. So when we're thinking about the new group of world servers, it's not just an abstract concept. It's a feeling of unity with these souls all over the world, and we are participating with them. There's animation, inspiration, vitalization in this. And not just, oh, you're a worker there and you're a worker there. It's a feeling of all working together in this great enterprise to unify humanity. So that's another thing that happens when we begin to understand our energies and have control over our energies. Another thing is, actually I shouldn't put this, otherwise this is not the Tibetan. This is a different number. Okay, here we go. So we're learning to work with these energies intelligently, and we become part of this group, and we feel it's like Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. If you think about the fourth movement of his Ninth Symphony, with which is based on Schiller's Ode to Joy, right? The German poet Schiller, and you all know the Ninth Symphony, don't you? It's the choral symphony by Beethoven, where the huge orchestra and the chorus is singing together, right? So it's called the Ode to Joy, and there, I think, when I look at Beethoven, I say, okay, this man had a fourth ray soul and a first ray personality. I don't know what his monadic ray is. Who knows? He had incredible power. But definitely had the first ray and the fourth ray. In other words, it was a repetition of the soul ray and the personality ray of Germany. So somehow Beethoven touched the Buddhic plane here. This is one of the great Buddhic pieces that not just the gentle Buddhi, but the power of universal harmony and the great chorus of humanity. He touched this incredible uplifting Buddhic power. I can only call it that. And it's one of the great Buddhic statements in all of human art and human expression. So, and it has a huge effect on uniting people when they're there together hearing this, Yes, you were going to say, Lona. Wagner and Parsifal, yes. The opening of Parsifal, yes, where the knights are coming in. Yes, yes. Wagner had it too. I get chills when I think about it. Yeah, Wagner worked his way into the Buddhic plane. When you think about some of his early works, they're very dramatic and some of them are very dark and so forth. But then somehow in Lohengrin and in Parsifal and maybe aspects of Tannhäuser, he touched that. I think he was also a fourth-rate soul and a first-rate personality. Somehow these great musicians, they reflected the soul ray of their country. When I look at Brahms too, I think the same, although Brahms had a lot of sixth ray. He was a very religious man. Yes, yes, film on a Danish television. Okay, with the immigration problem, yes. He was trying to set up a choir with different people. It, you had the same people, and people were unified. Some of them were very good, and other people were invited from the choir. So this had a unifying effect in a very fragmented situation. Yeah, I would always recommend that people somehow get to sing in a choir. Even if it's a church choir, whatever kind of choir, community choir, it really has a harmonizing effect. There was one man, he was a Taurus. He had a first-rate personality, and he was having a lot of trouble in the Tibetan groups. He was one of the two guys that was really overcome by glamour of various kinds. And there was a point at which DK said, I want you to drop all your meditation. You just stop now. And for the next 6 months, you listen to the beautiful music of the world, the orchestral symphonic music. That's all you do. You just listen to that. That's your assignment. So, I think when I think about a first-rate personality and Taurus, I can understand why he gave that to him, in order to somehow harmonize these many divisions in his nature with a array that Taurus has a great affinity for. This man also had a Libra ascendant, I believe, and maybe the moon was in, well, there was Leo, Libra, and Taurus. Those things were all involved. So DK saw how an energy could be brought into his system that would integrate him through beauty, because he had a fourth ray mind as well. See, all right, all right. So we'll have to maybe play that thing. Hallelujah chorus. Oh, now we have a chance for Eric to plug in something into our speaker system so it doesn't sound like a tin box. We'll see if we can do that. Okay. Then the third thing is, when we know the energies, the production of the physical plane, on the physical plane of a personality adequate for its creative task and capable of those forms of activity emanating from the mind which will enable him to further the work of the directing agency. So, in other words, use the energies to create an intelligent, expressive personality. So, in other words, because we know energies, we can make ourselves more fit to express them in the personal sense. All right, so that was the very first thing we were just studying here is, number one, learn the nature of the energies. And then he divided it into 3 parts, which was finding out what's potent in ourselves. And then the next one was grasping the relation of outer energies to inner energies, and then working with the energies intelligently, and doing that in 3 ways: using the imposing solar angelic rhythm on our lunar vehicles, uniting with the new group of world servers, and producing the right kind of personality and adequate personality through the understanding of energy. All right, now we get to the second large category. And the first large category was learn the nature of the energies. The second was learn to live as a soul. Now, let's see here. It becomes apparent. In other words, this all is in a section where he says the aspirant has to learn to do 3 things. So, sometimes DK has a subject, then a division, then a division of a division, so you can kind of get lost as to where you're going. Let's try to stay on top of it. The aspirant has to learn how to do three things, and learning the nature of the energies is the first, and the second is learn to live as a soul and therefore free from identification with the body nature. Learn to live as a soul free from identification with the body nature. Well, you know, we start every morning meditation in a certain way. It's a Raja Yogic system. It means basically, and Roberto Saggioli said, this is the way to keep your psyche healthy. He says basically this: I have a body, but I'm not my body. I have emotions, but I'm not my emotions. I have a mind, but I'm not my mind. This is the disidentification exercise. This is so simple, but it's the absolute essence of yoga. To achieve that kind of detachment, that pratyahara, that withdrawal, so we know that they could knock the whole body away. You could lose your desires in a specific sense. You could lose what you're thinking about. It wouldn't make any difference. And you'd still be who you are. Because we're not identified with our body, and we're not identified with our lower psyche. We just are not that. We have located ourselves as something else. We have actually found ourselves as something else. And so all the things that we thought we were, we're just not that anymore. Now that's absolutely fundamental to everything we're doing. If we cannot do that in reality, and if it's just a theory for us, then we still have a lot of work to do. Know what I'm saying? There's so many people, they look in the mirror and they say, well, that's me. And that's really wrong. That's not correct. That's not I. That's not what I am. Okay, so learn to live as a soul and therefore free from identification with the body nature, and the whole personality is the body nature. What does this bring out? And what happens when we do this? An ability to withdraw into the head consciousness, and from that high place to direct the life of the personal self. I read that the other day. Let all the forces be gathered to the center. Let them mount to the high place. And from that lofty eminence, let the soul look out upon a world destroyed. Then let the word go forth, I still persist. So the high place is the head consciousness. This is pratyahara. This is abstraction. This is withdrawal. Okay. Pratyahara. Abstraction, withdrawal. Okay, so we do not identify with the body nature, so we withdraw to the head consciousness. Now, they sometimes say that the first ray has the power of abstraction. You've heard that. That they can withdraw themselves to the center and have no part in anything other than the reality of the center. In a way, when we can withdraw into our head consciousness, we can produce that first ray effect. What else can we do? Three things are brought about. We achieve the power to pass through the various centers in the body, those universal forces and energies which are needed for world work. In other words, we use the chakras as centers for transmission of that which is needed. This has to be done consciously and in full awareness of the source from which they come, of the mode of their activity, and of the purpose for which they must be used. This involves also the understanding of which force is related to the centers, to which center. This consequently involves the necessity to develop those centers, to bring them into a state of potency, and to harmonize them in a unified rhythm. Well, I think we sometimes do this. For instance, we can semi-magically say, okay, I want access to third ray energy now. I visualize a symbol for the third ray. maybe the web, the net, the triangle. I visualize it in the color green. I attune with it. I see a flow of energy coming from that symbol. I direct it to my throat center. I maintain the alignment, and then I pass the energy from my throat center to the ajna center and to whatever I visualize that may need that particular energy. We can attune, and maybe I will play the note F behind me while I'm doing the whole thing. I will play the green note. I will view the symbol of the green ray. I will imagine the green stream. I will take it to my throat center, and I will maybe sing the Om on that note while I transmit the energy to wherever it is needed. We can somewhat do this. Okay, so that's another thing that can develop. You can abstract to the head. You can direct everything from the ajna center through every chakra, and you know the source from which it comes. Now, if I wanted to go further with that whole business, I might visualize the planet Saturn, or I might visualize one of the major third-ray constellations as a starry group and start the visualization from that point. That would be the constellation Cancer or Libra or Capricorn. That would put me in rapport with a particular third-ray stream. So I'm calling energies through my chakras. Do you sometimes do that? Yeah, of course. Obviously, we have a lot to develop before we can really do that successfully. He says at first, we should just be like a sheet of transparent glass to the soul energy before we can really be successful in directing. All right, what else develops here when we can live as a soul, free from identification with the form nature? We will develop then the capacity to work at will through the medium of any particular center. Now look, you people who are interested in esoteric healing, you have to do this, right? Let the healer focus the needed energy within the needed center. Let that center correspond to the center which has need. Let the two together synchronize and together augment force. In other words, here's a person who has a need. Something's wrong with their solar plexus chakra. You have to find that chakra within yourself, centralize the energy, come into rapport with them and with the soul. We use our own centers to help achieve balance in the chakras of another person, whichever law or rule that is of healing. So the capacity to work at will through the medium of any particular center, this is only possible when the soul can dwell as the ruler on the throne between the eyebrows. So if you think about it, this ajna center is terribly important as a directing center for whatever kind of energy distribution we want to use. And I will say this, and I said it yesterday, there comes a time when the sign Sagittarius has a very strong power over the ajna center so that you can aim your beam wherever you want it to go. You visualize it, and it goes to that point, directing the energy from the ajna center. And when the Kundalini fire has been what is occultly called raised, well, obviously, we can't really do this before the third initiation because there is not much raising before the third degree. The fire has to pass up through the spinal column and burn its way through the web that separates center from center on the golden rod of power. Okay, what is the golden rod of power? Take a look at what we've just. The fire has to pass up through the spinal column and burn its way through the web that separates center from center on the golden rod of power. What is it? What is the gold? Is it an external object, or is it something else? It's okay, it's in a way the lower reflection of the Antakarana, because the Antakarana is a mental construct. This is in a way obvious, isn't it? The golden rod of power It's the spine. It's the spine. Yeah, illumined spine. Sushumna. It's the Sushumna channel of the spine when it is in a certain state of activation. So, it's kind of interesting that the rod of power used by the initiator should correspond to the spine. Because my rod and staff, they comfort me. This is in the Bible. The rod of power is your spine, which is like obvious. And when the initiator directs energy to various of your chakras, it is along the spine, primarily, that this is happening, except for the Ajna center and the head center, but still, it can be considered along the spine. So the fire has to pass up along this way, and you can work through the medium of any particular center. When you're living as a soul, you can do this, right? When we are living as a soul. When we are living as a soul and are intelligent about the energies which are available and can access them. Okay. All right. Available. There we go. Let's go down. Third. Okay. Now, so what, whenever he says third, I want to know what was second, because we get involved in so many things that it's, so number 2 was living as a soul, and number 1 was learning the nature of the energies. Learn the nature of the energies. Here, I'll put it in red so we don't lose it. Learn the nature of energies, and then second, live as a soul, abstracted into the head center, and thereby able to direct from the Ajna center any energy to any place, through any chakra. And number 3, then, learn to study the reactions upon others of whatever energy he, through his personality, may be expressing, or which, if he be an initiate, and therefore a conscious worker with the plan, it may be his privilege to utilize or transmit. So, study the reactions of others, upon others, of the energy which we are or the energy which we transmit. Have you noticed with some people, have you ever had a situation with a person that your energy patterns, even though you might have goodwill about it or try to do it, just clash? They clash. Clashing energy patterns. There's like they don't resonate. They even interfere with each other. They're being who they are, you're being who you are. You don't want to necessarily interfere with each other, but you just do. Has that ever happened to you? It certainly happened to me. It calls for all the powers of harmonization that one can, if one wills to. Otherwise, you just say, I'm not going to have anything to do with you, and you're not going to have anything to do with me. And temporarily, that may be the best solution. Temporarily. And then you get with other people, and everything, simpatico, hey, this conjunction, that conjunction, this trine, and all the rest of it, and you just feel like you're rolling along. It's just an energy, it's a vibrational harmony. We know about this, don't we? Or don't we? Do we? Okay. All right. So study the reactions upon others of whatever energy he, through his personality, may be expressing, or which, if he be an initiate, he can utilize and transmit. It's different. Because the initiate has the privilege of actually soulfully directing energy. Now, sometimes if we're not at that point and we try to direct the energy, we can interfere or be unwise, etc. So sometimes it's just best to use the love energy. All healers are understanding that it's the 10th, it's the 6th rule of healing. The healer or the healing group must keep its will in leash. It is not will that must be used, but love. So that's the sixth rule of healing. And, we might say, well, you need this energy, here it comes, And in fact, we're forcing energy upon others rather than wisely directing it according to a need that we understand from a soul perspective and which has been invited, uh, so that we've received the invitation to use it. So anyway, through a close study of his personal effect upon his fellow men, as he lives amongst them, and as he thinks, speaks, and acts, he can learn the nature of the type of force which may flow through him. Now, have people told you about your effect on them, ever? Has it been nice what they said? Not always nice, not always nice. I guess it depends on who they are, right? Who they are. You have this effect on me, or I feel so inspired when you're around, or you drive me crazy, or whatever. Why do I always get irritable when you're here? That kind of thing. If you look at your life, what kind of planetary effect do you think you have on people? I've had a lot of people tell me, "Oh boy, you're really Saturn to me." Lawson Bracewell, you know him. He's the director of the Christ College of Trans-Himalayan Wisdom down in New Zealand, and he had a very interesting exercise. Once we were doing a PhD class, and he was down in some part of New Zealand, or maybe it was Australia this time, and he's had a lot of third ray in some ways. So he got in the middle, and he wove people together according to the aspects of Saturn that they had with each other. So if you had an aspect of Saturn with somebody, you ended up holding one thread and they held the other. And, we were looking at this network of meshes. I ended up holding all but one thread of all the 25 people in the class. Saturn threads. In other words, this Saturn was in powerful aspect with an important part of their chart, and I forget what it was. It couldn't just be any aspect, it had to be a significant aspect. And so I realized, and some of you maybe you have the Jupiter effect on people, or maybe you have the Venus effect, you were going to say. He's Saturnian himself. So, oh, yeah, well, we have to be careful about our projections, of course. As they say, we're always looking out the front part of our own aura when we look at other people. But we do have a planetary effect on people, don't we? See, that's one way to think of it. We also have a ray effect on people. So, and at first you're unconscious about your energies, but you begin to see how people react when you're around. Now, I'll just bet that there's a lot of people here in our class, let's say, who have kind of a Jupiterian effect on others because it's the major second ray distributor. They somehow expand their consciousness or give them a wider vision or point of view. I'll bet the Jupiterian effect is pretty strong. But we all have, do you have that? Jupiter and Gemini you have, right? Yeah. And have you noticed that effect on people that are gathered around you or that you have gathered? Yeah. Yeah. I guess it really, of course, it's so individual. It just depends on who you are, but just notice how people react when you are around, and you will see the primary ray effect and also some significant planetary effects. It's a very interesting way of observing, Sensitive courses, yes. 10 years stopped. Very tough on people to hear what the others in the group, how they reacted to them. 10 to 20 people in a group. And someone leave the course for several days. Oh, you mean they even committed suicide? So this was this kind of in business on the executive level, not only. So people learned how others reacted to them. Right. And also how they were told how other people thought they would handle problems, how other people thought they would handle problems, in their opinion. They were given feedback in that way. Yeah, yeah. Well, this takes us back to the thought of 2 days ago, something where you say, you can be truthful, you love enough. This is what DK said. But obviously in these situations, it wasn't always so. It was just a question, well, let me level with you. This is what I see. Bang, Psychiatrists. There's always a psychiatrist present in these courses. It went bad anyway, depending how strong they were. If they were strong, they could take it. But if there were some weak people, then it did a lot of damage to them. Yes, okay, well, they sometimes say the truth hurts, and then just because you share your opinion of someone, it doesn't mean it's the truth at all. It's just your opinion. Exactly. Well, as he says, criticism, that dire creator of misery. So it is a real sword. We have to be extremely careful when we are so-called leveling with people. We know in our field that it has to be done within the field of love. We know that much because you can kill somebody with words. You really can. So that is interesting. But have you studied yourself in this regard? Have you studied the reactions of people when you're around over the years and seen kind of how they respond? Do they laugh? Are they amused? Do they feel suppressed? Do they feel there's more opportunity? Do they feel confused? Do they feel hostile? How do people feel when your energy system impacts theirs? Do they feel clarified? Is their mind made clearer? Whatever, I think it's interesting because we learn about what we're giving off by studying others. I think it's fun, kind of. Sometime we ought to do that, one day, one fine day. Okay, so he learns the nature of the force, that type of force, which may flow through him. And as far as we're concerned, those are ray forces, zodiacal forces, and planetary forces, as well as the general force of our built-up causal body. Over many horoscopes, many lives, many ray charts, we are whatever our horoscope is right now, it doesn't, in a way, tell the whole story at all because we are who we are over many, many lives. It's right behind our horoscope. It's behind everything that we say in our egoic lotus is here. It's unfolded to a certain extent. It's got certain colors, certain emphases, and it is somehow coming through, and that's the general quality of the individual. So one day we have to learn about that too. We have to be able to look at each other and sort of see the egoic structure, which I think would be, that's what DK can do. That's how he knows what to say. Yes, Britta, cogitating about something. I don't know how to say it exactly, but if you observe that some person is kind of imposing energies towards others, how do you deal with that? Do you fear? Do you let go? Or I think everyone is different, right? It's a question of how do you deal with that? Yeah, because imposition is a first rate issue. Do you fight back? Do you start to cry? Do you remain silent? Do you make a joke? Do you try to change the subject? There's all kinds of ways of dealing with imposition. I was thinking about some of these people. I saw a picture I saw a play about Winston Churchill. He was so hard on his butler, or whoever this man was, the man who took care of all of the things. And his wife said to him, dear, you can't talk to him that way. And he said, oh, well, he knows how I am. He said, in this kind of first-rate manner that you would expect. After all, he was sort of running the war at the time, And the man, of course, being perfectly seventh ray, just took everything in stride, without showing any kind of irritation. It was, it's according to your rays, so you will react, I think. But what's the right thing to do? It depends. It depends on the circumstance, doesn't it? You can just tell a person, get lost, I don't want anything to do with you, or you can work for some kind of accommodation, or you can give them feedback, whatever. What do you do usually? Well, I don't know. Depends. I certainly react inside. And that's why I asked. Well, that's why I asked you the question. It's difficult to 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 go in between two people having their own altercation or interaction. If I sense that the one is being overruled over the other, it's hard for me not to intervene. Right. So in that case, you are sort of the rescuer or the defender, or you are helping the underdog. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're all different in how we react, for sure. But is Martha? Did you say what? Put them in the light. Oh, okay, okay. So you're talking about an occult method of helping the energy situation. Yes, sure. Oh, good. Well, look, all of this is about being fifth ray, about what energies are flowing at any one time, just being aware of it. Because people like ourselves, we really study the web of energies. We have a lot of energies that we become aware of, and we know that this is just the world of effects. And we're looking out and seeing what energies are at play, and we're seeing how the patterns work. So we have a certain amount of objectivity about it. Nevertheless, we can't remain students forever. We do have to do something. So how the second ray is, I'll study more and more until I'm in the grave, and then give me one more book so that I can read while I'm down there, So, but we learn, knowing these energies, that we can apply our willpower at a certain point. Look what DK says about how the second ray type is healing. And you've seen this before, but I'll just, it's all about studying carefully and then applying your willpower. These are marvelous little things that he gives us, just a few pages about what to do. The method of healing for the second ray man would be to learn thoroughly the temperament of the patient, as well as to be thoroughly conversant with the nature of the disease, so as to use his willpower on the case to the best advantage. So study all the energies, study the whole case, inside, outside, and then learn where to apply your willpower or your energy flow, as the case may be. And a lot of people here are interested in healing, so that is, specifically for them. So he learns the nature of the type of force which may flow through them. He can arrive, therefore, at an understanding of its of its type, its quality, its strength, and its speed. Right. It's not just whether you have an energy, it's how vital is it acting? At what frequency is this energy acting? These four words warrant consideration and elucidation. The type is the general discrimination of one energy from another. Its quality has to do with the degree of refinement. Its strength has to do with the degree of impressiveness, just the power with which it impacts. And its speed has to do with its rate of vibration. Maybe the speed is the hardest to understand, but will it act quickly or slowly? So we have our ray charts, we have our astrology charts, we have our chakra charts, and we have to apply this kind of analysis to all of that as well. I would say that in classes of this nature, we are learning to be very energy specific about ourselves, and to not just think of ourselves in a personal way. We are an energy bundle. We are an energy packet We are an energy pattern. That's what we are. And we're interfacing with other energy bundles, packets, and patterns. And therefore, we can stand back in a fifth-ray manner, and we can understand the interaction and not take it personally in our solar plexus. Have you ever felt yourself in the middle of kind of a heated situation, standing back and analyzing what's going on? Because, I mean, that's something we finally learned to do instead of just getting in there and reacting, you know what I mean? Thoughtlessly reacting, keeping Mars and Moon out of the situation, and letting Mercury and Venus step in instead. Okay, so these four words warrant consideration and elucidation. Yes, Anna, yes. If I look at those three words, couldn't you say that? Then what could... Four is the element? Water. Could we apply elements to this? Could we apply elements to these four words? Straits could be the aspect. Speed could be the rays. And quality could be the chart. Okay, well, look, we're certainly entitled to interpret this in any way we might find. What makes sense to you is what's important. He goes on and he actually gives us his interpretation, which we may find is good. Okay, the type of force as used by an aspirant will indicate to him its emanating source. Okay, what planet, what star, what constellation did this come from? This is the type. And a study of it will begin to signify to him the entity from which it has emanated. All of us are connected to the planets, to the constellations, to the stars of the Great Bear. Where did this come from? That's what we're asking. A knowledge of the type answers the question, along what line of energy and upon what ray is this force to be found? A close watch upon this aspect of the work will soon indicate the following. Now, DK has an extremely organized mind. So you see how he outlines things and gives you A sub 1, sub A, sub B's, etc., etc. It will tell, if we look at the type and we watch this aspect of the work, it will indicate to us the following. Upon what plane he himself may be working. The nature of his ray, egoic ray and personality ray. Only the initiate of the third degree can ascertain his monadic ray. Now, the word ascertain is extremely important because to ascertain something means to not only detect it, but to be certain that your detection is correct. So people who are not third degree can estimate their monadic ray. They can give their sense of what it is, but to be certain about it, we have to be the third degree initiate. The particular tattva, which may be involved, and let's see, I have to review that. We have a chart on the tattvas, and or I'm not sure, does he mean the gunas here as a substitute? Tattva is another thing than guna, but he might mean also the gunas, rajas, tamas, or sattva, and the center through which he may be transmitting the force. So all of these four things are revealed to him by the type of force, the type. Let's make these words very big because they are words which are now broken down and given a clear meaning. Type, quality, strength, and speed. Okay, so many things can be found by the type of force, and we spend a lot of time in classes of this nature trying to discover the type of force which is animating us. Okay. Now, all right. Yes, time is moving. Okay, we have to, yes. Okay, don't worry. We won't starve. It'll be okay. It will be apparent, therefore, that a study of the types of energy is of practical usefulness and will tend to leave no part of the aspirant's nature untouched. Every part of our nature will be analyzed, and we will seek to know the type of energy working through it, its source, what center is involved, at least the guna and the tattva, and the particular ray energies involved. Okay, think for a minute of the lessons which can be learned by the man who submits the energy used in verbal expression, for instance, to the scrutiny of the inner ruler, and who, after talking or after joining in the give and take of daily life, asks himself the question. Now, here we go. DK is giving us a nice evening review. He did write out a lot of evening reviews for people on various subjects, and they usually have 30 or 31 parts to them, for one day, for each day of the month. What was the type of energy used by me in my speech today? What was the force that I expended in my contact with my fellow men? You ask me if I can illustrate this for you? Okay. DK must have heard somebody think. Now let me attempt to do so, and so make simple what is deemed so oft to be abstruse and difficult. Let the student inquire of himself whether the position he held mentally, and whether the words which he spoke on any particular occasion were prompted by a desire to impose his will upon his hearers. This is coming right to what you were talking about, Britta. This imposition of his will could be either right or wrong. When right, it would mean that he was speaking under the impulse of spiritual will, that his words would be in line with soul purpose and intent, and would be governed by love, and therefore would be constructive, helpful, and healing. His attitude would be one of detachment, and he would have no desire to take prisoner the mind of his brother, which of course is the Bucyrus type of approach in the labor of Gemini. Bucyrus, the false teacher, took Hercules prisoner for a period of time and bound him to himself. But if his words were prompted by self-will and by the desire to impose his ideas upon others so as to shine in their presence or to force them to agree with his conclusions, his method would then be destructive, dominating, aggressive, argumentative. Sounds very Martian, doesn't it? Forceful, rude, ruddy rude, Mars, right? Or irritable, according to his personality trends and inclinations. This would indicate the right or the wrong use of first-ray force. That is what you meant. Exactly. So this was, you were anticipating this section of the book. What DK is really teaching us to do is how to analyze the energies and forces which emanate from us, and which it's very, very practical. And in the ray work, obviously we are doing this all the time. In these classes from the University of the Seven Rays and so forth, we've been doing this for 20 years or more, watching closely the energies that we use under every circumstance. Okay, moving on here just a little bit. Excuse me. Should the type of force he wields be that of the second ray, he can submit it to a similar analysis. He will then find it to be based on group love, service, and compassion, or upon a selfish longing to be liked, on sentiment, and on attachment. The love of, as I say, the love of being loved. That's it. The love of being loved, and not the love. The love of love must dominate, and not the love of being loved. That's it. That's the second ray integration formula. The power to draw unto oneself must dominate, but into the worlds of form that love must one day fail to penetrate. So you're not drawing the forms of others to you, you're drawing them as souls. It's a completely different thing, completely different law. So analysis, this is analysis within the field of wisdom, you might say. His words will indicate to him, if he will closely study them, will indicate this to him. Similarly, if he is using third-ray force in a personal manner. He will be devious in his propositions, subtle and elusive in his arguments, using manipulation in his relations with his fellow man, or be an interfering busybody. I think I want to underline that, And the glamour of interference is not only for the sixth-ray type. You can be an interfering busybody on the third ray, or be an interfering busybody actively engaged in running the world, in managing other people's lives for them, or in grasping so firmly the reins of government in his own self-interest that he will sacrifice everything and everybody in the work of furthering his own busy ends. This deserves contemplation, I think. DK certainly has some interesting things to say. If he is, however, a true disciple and aspirant, he will work with the plan and will wield third-ray force to bring about the loving purposes of the spiritual reality. He will be busy and active, and his word will carry truth and will lead to the helping of others, for they will be detached and true. The rending of the blinding veil must occur for the third-ray type. And let's see, the power to speak the truth and practice right. These will be the things that give the third-ray type what he needs. Okay, so is this clear? We have come to a section, so we're not going to do this next section now because we're just at the time when we have to take our break. But what has DK told us in this last section? He's told us how to analyze our energy, especially on the first, second, and third ray. Did you find yourself, by the way, on any of these ray analyses? Did you find the first, second, or third ray at all? Maybe other rays would be important. That you could relate to? Yeah, okay. Well, none of us is a totally simple person. We all have our complexities. He said it can be right or wrong to impose your will. That's interesting. So far, he's only dealt with type. He hasn't really dealt with quality, strength, and speed, and maybe he's not going to. I don't know. We'll see what is coming up. So we're studying the reactions upon others. We are studying. We're looking at the power to live as a soul and to transmit energy, and we are learning what energies we have. Learning the energies, transmit them as a soul, and the third one is study the reactions upon others. It's very, very practical. In healing, you have to be very honest with yourself and consider why you're doing. Yes, why you're doing, what the consequences might be. Yes, right. In other words, even in healers, there's often an egoistic motive, Yes, I mean, like, I healed you. You know what I mean? I am the great healer. All right, so truly selfless healing, yes, you have to really understand your motives, very much so. All right, we're in a very good section here, very interesting section, very important section, and it's all about energies and forces. In the objective of bringing the Christ force through the personality onto the physical plane, and we're studying the forces which are transmitted through the vital body. Okay. We've learned about the different types of pranas, and we are really studying ourselves in this respect, trying to be as clear about our energy configuration as we can. We know that we can be into destructive processes by excessive fire or too little fire, so we want to know what energies we are wielding so that we can balance them in their expression. We can keep our thought form alive by skill in action when dealing with the energies and forces we have, so we don't burn up our thought form or don't make it impossible for it to live. All right, now as you can see, I know that, how many of you have things you have to do later this afternoon? Or are you willing to suffer through for a while? Well, I'll tell you what, if you have something that you must do, then you do it. I'm going to try to move ahead, not really late, but with a certain amount of, I think we should go through some of this, the use of the hands. What was the original? We are on page 15 of 40. So that's not, we're not probably going to finish. Let's see, what were the things we were studying here? We were going to look at the centers and prana, the use of the hands, the treading of the way, and the awakening of the centers. Well, we've done the centers and prana. We'll see how the use of the hands goes, and we'll see how far we go. I mean, we don't have to solve it all now. We have another meeting in 6 months, and so we can carry on here and perhaps finish the book at that time. All right, take your break now, and we'll see you in 1 hour and 15 minutes, which is approximately 1 o'clock or no later than 2 o'clock and no later than 5 after 2. Sorry about that. Yeah. Whoa. Okay. Tellin, no, I don't. I don't remember the name of the church, but it was one of the big ones, but I don't think it was the main one. May not have been the main church. Okay. Yes, well, it was when he was kind of coming through that the vibration was there, you know. But yeah, not that's right. That's all I can tell you. I'm sorry to say. Okay, we'll have to do it. Okay. All right, friends. Is there anything? We have a break of about an hour, a little more. Is there anything anybody would want to say at this point? Say or ask. We can spend a little bit of time doing that. I will look for your hands. If you'd like to discuss this, I've said before, you know, we're in kind of a hybrid seminar here, which means that I have to pay attention to the class that's here, and the interactivity for the electronic participants is reduced as a result. But when we actually carry on our strictly electronic webinars, then we will be in a position to be somewhat more interactive, given the limitations of the mode we're working in. So, anything you would like to say or ask at this point? We have a few minutes. We can do that. I'll look for any hands that you have raised. I'll just go through the list, and if I see anybody's hand raised, I will call on them, provided I can open their microphone. Maybe not, huh? Maybe not at this time. I'll go one more pass. One more pass. Okay, well, so far, you know, I think we've done pretty well. We have not had the microphone problems that we had during the meditation this morning. So that's a relief, and hopefully we'll be able to continue in that good form. This part of the book is so very important, so very, very practical. Think about that, you know, the effect you have on other people. Think about how they react. That's a very good way somehow of telling what energies we are wielding. We can be objective enough to begin to notice how they respond, and we have to get very, very clear in a fifth-ray sense about the energies in our system, not only what's there, but what does it say? They're not only the type, but its quality, its strength, its speed, and all of that should show up in other people who are within our aura or within our range of expression, how they will respond to us. You know, because frankly, self-knowledge, it's only partial at the moment. Even if we know a part of ourselves, there's so much as yet undisclosed. Not only the lower unconscious, which we may have forgotten about, and which still can be effective, but higher potentials which are present and which we are yet to evoke and which will emerge later in our lives. So this Leonian business of studying ourselves carefully so we can be more effective servers and eventually more effective magicians is an ongoing necessity. And I would say, let self-knowledge increase dramatically if possible, so we can be much more skillful in action. Okay, friends, I tell you what, I don't see anybody raising their hand right now, so we'll all go to lunch here, and we'll be back in a little more than an hour, and we'll continue in Chapter 14 with the use of the hands in service. We have now studied something about the centers and prana, only something about them, but enough to get a good idea of what energy is there and how it's wielded. Every one of these next sections is so important. But of course, we have 25 pages left to go, and at least some of the people here have to be somewhere. And I don't know how many of you are going on through the night, but others are in Europe, and it's easier for them. We will catch you in just about an hour. Okay. Talk to you then. All right. All right, we have come to the section where we're focusing on the second of the four subjects, the use of the hands. We'll see how long we go on today. We see whether we'll stop after the midway point here, perhaps. The use of the hands. All right. Mm-hmm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is of value here when we are dealing with the wielding of force to give a little information about the use of the hands in such work. One of the masters has said, "It is but with armed hand, and ready either to conquer or perish, that the modern mystic can hope to achieve his object." Sounds a bit like Hilarion. Sounds like a very first-rate statement, you know. It sounds like, you know, the kingdom, how do they say, the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force. So it is but with armed hand. Of course, the arms are not the conventional arms. They are energies. And we must be ready to conquer or perish. It sounds like a rather either-or situation. I intend to speak a few words about the hands, for there is more occult teaching hidden in these words than is apparent on the surface. Let's see if he elaborates. If you've read The Light of the Soul by Master Hilarion, just a little book, is very strenuous, very strong, very demanding, very demanding. Sounds like his vibration, you know, conquer or perish, that's it. In one of the old books available for the instructions of disciples, these words are found. The armed hand is an empty hand, and this protects its possessor from the accusations of his enemies. It is the hand freed from the taint of the four symbolic evils: gold, lust, the dagger, and the finger of enticement. Wow. So gold is the misuse of the energy of the third aspect. Lust is the second aspect, the flesh desiring. The dagger is the first aspect, where you are killing. And the finger of enticement is that which leads into temptation, where you lead people off the track. The armed hand, now, when the fourth initiation has been taken, then the hand is truly empty. How does the phrase go? Only the empty, nail-marked hands can, and let's just see if I find this. It's all about having been crucified on the fixed cross, and thereby earning the right to give the bounty of the world because you have not grasped for yourself. Let's see here. Only the empty. Well, only the empty. There's only one of them. Let's see what it says. Only the empty, nail-marked hands can keep the chain complete. This is from the Esoteric Catechism. So they are leaving the fourth behind, and they're mounting on the upper limb. They're leaving the fourth kingdom of nature behind. And what happens as they do this? They pass through tears, through clouds and mists. They suffer and they die. They bid adieu to all earth's friends. They mount the way alone. They bridge the gap with loving deeds done in the pain of living. They lift one hand aloft to him who standeth just above. They lean one downward to the man who standeth next below. The hands, freed from the transverse arms, are freed but to be held. So the horizontal, you are crucified with the horizontal arms, and now you are part of the chain of hierarchy. Only the empty, nail-marked hands following the fourth degree can keep the chain complete. So this is the Esoteric Catechism, page 210, Initiation, Human and Solar. So it's the chain of hierarchy, and I'll write it down here, can keep the chain complete. The armed hand is an empty hand. It's a bit like turning the other cheek as well, right? This is the way to overcome one's enemy. Resist not evil with evil. These words are most significant, and it might be well to study briefly the type of hands and their quality, which are distinctive of disciples. In all forms of esoteric teaching, the hands play a great part in this for 4 reasons. So let us see the reasons given. They are the symbols of acquisitiveness. This is, in a way, related to Cancer and the claws of the crab, and to a degree to Scorpio, because the pincers are also there. But Cancer is the Cancer. Cancer is the lunar nature. Is the lunar nature, which desires for itself, and its exalted planet is Jupiter, the planet of greed, having too much, wanting too much, grasping all for the lower form. When you think about planets, you can't say some are good or some are bad. They can all function spiritually or materially. Sacred or non-sacred planets can function in either way. So the fact that any exaltation, you say, well, it's an exaltation of the planet, that's marvelous, so it's going to work well. But just think about the moon exalted in Taurus, where you have the form is exalted above all other things, and the satisfaction of the form becomes very, very important. Jupiter in Cancer is the same way. You are not giving for the generosity of the world. That exaltation can have also a negative effect, where you are grasping everything to indulge the lower self, Jupiter in Cancer. So be careful about exaltations and rulerships, because they can be positive or negative. A detriment can be an elevation. A fall of a planet can be even a higher elevation. Okay, so let's see. Why are the hands so important? They are the symbols of acquisitiveness. They are centers of force. And so, in the healing work, it's magnetic healing that involves the hands. They cure disease or create a worse condition depending on the knowledge of the healer, or increase the evil state depending on the knowledge of the healer. They are wielders of the sword. Now the sword can be good or bad, but this is a first-rate symbol, and they cleave, or they cut evil away from good. So they have a powerful executive significance, and they are, when employed unselfishly. Now, this is probably the first one where we're speaking of a strictly unselfish employment. Agents of healing and agents whereby certain keys are turned. The healing part is easier to understand, but we do know if there is a key in the lock, the hand must turn it. So it's not just enough to have the key, you must apply the key. Let's just say having the key is one thing, and applying it or turning it is another. And this requires skill. So let's see what DK says about these things. He tells us that we are to study the way the Christ in the Bible used his hands, because there's a great deal to be learned from about how the initiate will use his hands. And in a way, you know, what the hands, with 5 and 5, let's just say the hands are the symbol of Mercury and of the Aryan race, the fifth race, and 5 fingers each. And also they indicate the 2 paths, the right-hand path and the left-hand path. Of course, you can tread them with your legs, but you know, generally the hands spread, the legs are more together, and we indicate the right and the left. This, pardon me? Pairs of opposites, yes, exactly. Yeah, so it's Gemini. Hands are ruled by Gemini and the pairs of opposites, and indicate the pairs of opposites. And we also, you know, it's interesting, we call the left hand, I guess from Latin, we call it sinister. No, it means left, sinistre, sinister. So we have this association of sin, sinister, left hand, the path of matter. And then the right hand, left and right, they have the names associated with them of the 2 paths about which we have a choice. Viewing them as symbols of acquisitiveness, it must be remembered that in the average man they are employed to grasp and hold. So here we have Cancer involved, and we also have Vulcan, which on the first ray takes for itself, because Vulcan rules the fist. So the fist can be useful, as we're told in the integration formula for ray 1. The hands clenched, the body braced, and mind alert. So this is a position ready for action, but at the same time, you grab with your fist and you take. So there's theft and rape and unlawful acquisition. And to acquire that which man wants for himself and for the satisfaction of selfish desire. So you might say in this case, Vulcan, the fist, serves Mars, the desire body. Okay. In spiritual man, the hands are still symbols of acquisitiveness, but he only grasps that which is needed for the helping of the group, and releases at once towards that end that which he has acquired. So there is a statement in relation to financial affairs, and it is, how does it go? It goes like this: use, demand, and then take. So when you have poured out everything you have and you've used what you have for good purposes, then you're allowed to take again, only to dispense. In other words, the divine circulatory flow is not interrupted by this type of taking, because it is taking to use in service. The initiate holds nothing for self, The Savior of the race may utilize all that is laid up in the divine storehouse, but not for himself, only for those he seeks to help. So acquisition is not necessarily bad, but acquisitiveness is not good. That's a different thing. And I think, what is one of the, how does it go? One of the one of the commandments and the means of yoga has to do with abstention from acquisitiveness. Isn't that in the light of the soul? There are several of those. Does anybody remember exactly? I think acquisitiveness is one of them. It's sort of greed and acquisitiveness. Let's see. I'm going to just put the word acquisitiveness down and see what happens. And nothing happens. Acquisitiveness. Nothing. Well, it's there. What about greed? Is greed there? Wait a second. Maybe I have something else that is clicked. I'm not sure. It should be in the light of the soul. It should be. Let's look at the means of yoga for just a moment. And there are many of those, but let's just see. The first three, the 5 commandments, that's what we want to look at. The 5 commandments. Right poise, he plays the 5 discipline, means of yoga. The 8 means of yoga, yama, the rules of niyama. Okay, constitute internal or external purification. Aha, this is what it is. Abstention from theft, from incontinence, and from avarice. So avarice is like acquisitiveness. Avarice is greed. These involve the hands. You know, you take with your hands, symbolically, and when you are greedy or avaricious, you take more than you need. So what we have with these commandments, there's too much taking in, and there's too much going out. The incontinence is too much energy going out, and the theft and avarice is taking in what does not belong to us rightfully. Okay. So it's called avarice, abstention from avarice. Now, of course, that's not just physical things. Many thieves, they'll go into your house and they'll take your television set or whatever, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about even mental acquisitions, laying claims to that which is not yours, and seeking to appropriate for the sake of the glorification of your ego that which doesn't belong to you. So it's a kind of greed whereby we want what the other person has, and we don't generate what we need from within ourselves. Eventually we learn we can generate from within everything we need. As centers of force, the hands play a most potent part. So let's see, they are wielded towards centers of force and employed unselfishly. They play a most potent part, and one that is little understood. It is an occult fact that the hands of a disciple, once he has acquired that acquisitiveness which is based on unselfish group work, becomes transmitters of spiritual energy. I'm remembering that the Tibetan was correcting Roberto Assagioli somewhat. He was saying, well, obviously this was an initiate disciple, and he was saying you have an avidity. This is the English word. It means you're eager. Avidity for knowledge, which you have to watch so it doesn't become excessive. This is part of this acquisitiveness based on unselfish group work. But here's the question. What we grasp, do we want it for ourselves? For some kind of self-aggrandizement, or are we grasping that which we need to... What happened here? Am I red? I forgot to turn it off, and now I turned it on to green, and what am I now? Am I red? I'm red. Well, how do you like that? What a reversal. Okay, I mean I was red all the time. At that, really? Oh, heavens. Okay. All right. Well, I did do it, but I couldn't see.